Eating a hot meal, sleeping through a hard freeze, and walking out clean by morning, all inside one sleeper cab, sounds like three separate problems. Tonight, they turn out to be the same fight. In a gravel lot outside Twin Falls, Idaho, a driver reaches behind his own bunk and unplugs his refrigerator. On purpose. In a night already sitting below zero, dinner is about to lose so the heater can win. 3 systems, 1 battery, 0 backup once the sun goes down. Under 14 feet is roughly all the space he has to work any of it out. You won't find this explained anywhere else because nobody outside a cab has ever had to solve this math. So which one of those 3 needs actually gets sacrificed first once winter hits? And why is the answer almost never the one people guess? This story runs in 3 layers. What winter actually does to a body inside a steel box, the systems built to fight back, and one habit almost every driver relies on that you would never guess actually saves them. By the end of this, that little hum coming from a parked truck's window is going to sound like something completely different to you. And once you see how hard these 3 needs compete for the same small battery, you'll realize most of what you assumed about roughing it was backwards. So if it isn't money keeping him out of a hotel bed, what's actually making that decision for him? Under federal law, the driver is personally responsible for that trailer during every hour of rest. Walk away from it, and he can void the freight contract and the cargo insurance in the same stroke. That single rule decides more of his night than any personal preference ever could. Winter adds its own referee on top of that. Idling the engine to stay warm sounds like the obvious workaround. But cities like Salt Lake City cap it at 2 minutes, with fines climbing toward $410 on a second offense. And even if he were willing to gamble on a motel instead, there's a simpler problem waiting in the parking lot. A loaded rig runs roughly 70 to 75 feet long, nose to tail, about the length of a bowling lane. And most hotel lots were never built to hold something that size. One January night outside Amarillo, Texas, a driver took that gamble anyway, trading his cab for a motel bed 2 miles down the frontage road. By morning, the trailer seal had been cut, and several $1,000s of frozen product had thawed across the pavement before anyone found it. So what is it about winter specifically that raises the stakes on all of this? Even if every one of those problems disappeared tonight, the law, the fines, the parking, most veteran drivers would still choose the cab. Winter is where that choice actually gets tested. Which system do you think loses first when the cold really sets in? The heater or the fridge? Start with warmth, since it eats the biggest slice of the battery first. A diesel bunk heater, built by companies like Webasto or Espar, burns somewhere between 3/100ths and 6/100ths of a gallon of fuel per hour, sealed, silent, pulling its air from outside and venting outside again, which is why it is safe to sleep beside all night. 1 gallon can deliver up to 22 hours of heat. That sounds like it solves everything, and this is where it gets interesting because the heater only knows about the air. It has no idea there is a refrigerator behind the driver's head trying to keep a week of groceries below 40 degrees off that exact same battery. Here's a number that changes the whole picture. The engine under that hood can put out 400 horsepower, enough to pull 80,000 pounds up a mountain grade without slowing down. The little box actually keeping the driver alive at night puts out about what a hairdryer does. The truck that looks like it survives on brute force is really running on the same principle as a phone battery, and do that trade-off badly enough. It does not just crash an app. The cold never bargains. It subtracts. Every amp the heater's blower and ignition pull is an amp the fridge compressor does not get. And in real cold, the math turns against him twice. If this is the kind of hidden math you like uncovering, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. New ones go up every week. A truck battery sitting at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit can drop to less than 40% of what it delivers on a mild day, right when 3 separate systems are all asking it for more at once. One rough night costs him a lost inch of charge. A hard winter of those nights costs him a battery replaced 2 years early. A career of hard winters costs him thousands of dollars in equipment nobody outside the industry ever sees listed on a spec sheet. None of that shows up on the invoice for the load he's hauling, and none of it shows up in the pay stub either. So what happens to the third need, getting clean, once the battery is already this stretched? It turns out cleanliness doesn't pull from the battery at all. It pulls from an entirely different account: time. Truck stop chains run private shower rooms, cleaned and inspected between each use, usually for somewhere around $10 to $15 or free once a driver has bought enough fuel. But reaching one means leaving the parking spot he already found, burning diesel, and spending minutes off a federal clock that only gives him a fixed number of hours before he has to be driving again. So which would you rather lose on a bad night? 20 minutes of driving time or a hot shower? Most drivers don't even frame it as a choice anymore. They just know the answer before the question finishes. Warmth, food, and being clean are all quietly competing for one of two things: the battery or the clock. Solve one and the other tightens. Presque Isle, Maine. 4 in the morning, minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit outside the glass. The bunk heater cuts out first, and within minutes, the APU trips out too, both of them pulling from a battery that has already lost half its strength in the cold. No blower, no hum, just the small tick of metal contracting somewhere in the dash. He hits the ignition button twice, then a third time out of habit. More than hope. Nothing catches. Outside, the wind has stopped too, which somehow makes it worse. The dinner he cooked 2 hours ago is going cold on the passenger seat at almost the exact same rate the cab is, about 1 degree every 2 minutes. For a second, the only thought in his head is stupid and simple. Pick one. You can't have both. Except now there isn't power left for either. What do you even grab first when there's no time to think it through? He doesn't notice the cold first. He notices how quiet it suddenly is, quieter than he remembers it ever being. This pattern is documented. So how do drivers make sure that specific night never happens to them? Most of it looks almost too small to matter. Number 1, diesel, or a winter blend, resists turning to wax, the way standard fuel does below 4 degrees Fahrenheit. A battery blanket, essentially an insulated jacket wrapped around the battery box, keeps it from losing that 40% overnight. Thermal curtains sealed around the bunk can cut heat loss by up to 60% for less than the cost of one truck stop shower. Notice how none of these fixes involve more power. That's not an accident. It's the whole strategy. But the cheapest fix in the whole system might be a 12-volt heated blanket that draws almost nothing and warms the body directly instead of the whole cab, quietly doing at night what an idling engine used to do illegally and expensively. Here's the question most people watching this have been sitting on without asking it. Why not just install a bigger battery and stop rationing anything? Because a bigger battery is heavier, costs thousands more, and still can't fix a steel box that loses heat through every seam in the glass. It just delays the same math by an hour. And an hour is not nothing at 4 in the morning, but it isn't a solution either. One driver put it simply once: you learn what you can live without before you learn what you can't. You can see it in how they move by the third winter, unhurried, checking gauges before checking the weather, hands already reaching for the right switch before the cold even finishes registering. There's no drama in it by then, just routine. So how does all that discipline actually compare to just booking a room down the street? A hotel room solves this problem by simply not having it. Unlimited power, a shower down a public hallway, a mattress built for looking nice in photos, rather than for 8 real hours of sleep, and a checkout time that has never once respected a trucker's schedule. It's comfortable. It also asks nothing of the person using it, which is exactly why so many veteran drivers, given the choice, still climb back into a rig they had to learn how to run. Here's the part that flips everything you just watched. The skill that keeps a driver fed, warm, and clean through a winter night was never about adding more, a bigger heater, a bigger battery, a bigger tank. It was about knowing exactly what to switch off and in what order before the cold makes that decision for him. Most people upgrade their way through a hard winter, a bigger furnace, a thicker coat, another space heater plugged into another outlet. He does the opposite and somehow ends up warmer for it. That isn't survival. That's mastery. And it fits inside a battery the size of a lunchbox. What's the one thing you would refuse to cut power to if your whole home had to run off a single battery for one freezing night? And if you had to choose right now between staying warm, eating something hot, or getting clean, which one would you give up first? If this changed how you hear that fridge hum coming from a parked truck, that is exactly why we make these. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe. There's a lot more like this coming. We will see you in the next one.